Well,
Okay, all right. Well, we are live. I just want to take the time to say how happy I am to have two dynamic people joining this conversation related to Juneteenth. I'm going to allow the first gentleman to introduce himself, and then we'll get to our special guest. But first, before we start, I want to introduce myself. My name is Miguel Jones. I'm a village trustee in the village of Maywood. I'm also a proud resident of the village of Maywood, and happy to talk about Juneteenth and talk about what's going on this weekend and what's going on just in the world. So I'm happy to be here and happy to have this conversation.
how you doing? My name is Stafford. I'm actually a village Bellwood product. I'm actually the worshipful master of my lodge, Eureka Lodge number 64, where we have taken Juneteenth and tried to honor some of our heroic Black leaders of the community. I would like to say thank you all for listening to our conversations as we continue. I'm also Juneteenth, June 19th is my birthday, so it's a special day for me personally. So.
Awesome. Well, without further ado, I do want to introduce our special guest. Juneteenth is a celebration of, our past history, but, we want to make sure that we celebrate our current history and people that have, made the way for, even young, professionals and upcoming leaders like myself. So I want to introduce the Senate Majority Leader, first, I believe, youngest Black woman to be elected to the Illinois General Assembly. I could go on and on. Maywood native. Without further ado, our Senate Majority Leader, Miss Kimberly Lightford. How are you doing?
Thanks, Miguel. Hi, Tyreese. I'm doing really well. Thank you. And happy birthday, Tyreese.
Thank you.
Awesome. Well, Tyreese, why don't you hit us with our first question?
Okay, Senator, what does Juneteenth mean to you, and what should it mean to the Afro-American community in 2020?
But thanks, Tyreese, and thanks for having me on. I should have said that because I actually enjoy being in the midst of strong, young Black men who are on the move and bringing all of those desires to our community that we really need in so many ways. And this conversation is one of them. Because Juneteenth for me didn't mean anything when I was young because it wasn't taught in our history books. And that's the challenge that I believe we still face in making sure that all of our histories is taught in our history books and not just things that aren't true about our community or lacking in who we really are. So for me, I didn't learn of Juneteenth until I was actually in college. And I was in the African American Studies course. And that's when I learned of Juneteenth. So this is like 1987, 1986, 87. And then I learned a little more about it as I began to learn of who I am. And I started reading a lot of Maya Angelou poetry, and it really empowered me as a young Black woman. And she began to talk about Juneteenth in one of her writings. And I was so engrossed in that. There were so many people who didn't know that they were freed and that they still spent years, in slavery, and how could that message not get to them? And then I found it to be just as important as any other holiday that we celebrate, and recognizing that we don't celebrate Juneteenth. So it's really important to me that we as a Black people know that we had families, we had ancestors who were still in bondage 2 additional years after President Lincoln signed the Emancipation Proclamation document. And so I think we ought to embrace the holiday. We ought to share it amongst each other. And especially in this times in 2020, when we learn that we're still the institutional racism that we've been enslaved in, we have a chance to make some concrete changes. I believe we ought to be more engaged on who we are, where we come from, why Juneteenth is an important holiday, and begin to celebrate it.
Senator, you're absolutely right. As far as all things considered, just the fact that, this is a holiday that, even for me, I kind of got caught on later on in life. And now it seems like, at least since I've been kind of aware and celebrating over the past few years, it seems like this has gotten the most energy. So I guess the question that I want to ask for you, and I've noticed a lot of local municipalities have kind of taken that next step as far as making this a holiday. A lot of corporations have decided to do this. What's your thoughts on this potentially being at the state level and at the federal level, this being some sort of like national holiday where we don't go to work? Do you see that in the near future? And if so, like, how does that get accomplished?
Well, I do. In the near future. I don't know that if Trump will allow it on a national level. We have to be realistic. We have one of, you can't talk about number 45 without them coming after you. So I'm not going to speak against him. I'll just say that I know that it will be very difficult to get that honored at the national level. But at the state level, I think we're in a good position to be able to do so. In Illinois, it is a commemorative holiday. But it's not at the level where businesses are closed down, and it's not a holiday like George Washington birthday or Lincoln birthdays or the president's birthdays. It's nothing to that magnitude, but I believe it should be. We had the same challenge with Martin Luther King birthday. Some people honor it, some people don't. And over the last 10 years or so, you can tell that kind of picked up in a major way. I think that the state of Illinois is in a good position to do so. I have had conversations with the governor and his administration about it. And I've gone a step further to say that this is a reason why Black history ought to be taught in our schools. I passed a bill about 8 or 9 years ago with State Representative Monique Davis instituting Black history in our history books. But when I look at it now and I'm doing my research, I find that school districts just didn't honor the law. They just didn't do it. And there ought to be consequences when there is a law put on the books and it is not being followed. And so here's an example. You cannot continue to teach our kids only about MLK and Rosa Parks and the bus movement. We as a people are far more than just that. But that's the nonviolent approach that they only want us to teach about because we were passive in how we were getting things done. So now, we can tell them about MLK, but we can't tell them about Marcus Garvey. We can't tell them about Malcolm X. We can't tell them about that we held their people for 2 years longer in slavery. We can't teach them that, but it's really our history. And we ought to know about it. So the governor, lucky for us, we've just got a great guy. He's a great human being. He doesn't have to compromise. He doesn't ego trip. And he's really good to work with as it relates to Black issues. And so I believe tomorrow you will see that the governor is going to lower the U.S. flag, half staff, because we're in mourning. And it wasn't something that we had to push for. I know my state representative on the east side of my district, LaShawn Ford, had called for the governor to do that, but they had already put it in their thought process, see that that's what was going to happen. And then, he raised the Pan-African flag for the very first time. We had the Pan-African flag on the state capitol for Black History Month, and it was on the state building downtown. And so he's already engaged with our community needs. So I believe that this time next year, Juneteenth will have more of a recognition that each company single-handedly doesn't have to do, but it'll be something that's cohesive across the state.
Nice, Senator. That's great. I want to shift a little bit and talk about George Floyd. Obviously, I wanted to know what is your thoughts with the death of George Floyd and the racial protests and tensions that's going on across the nation and across the world in regards to.
So, I've got a lot of emotions. I've been on an emotional roller coaster since this happened. And when, I'll be totally honest because I don't know no other way to be. I'm so transparent. I tell all my business, but I was, we woke up that morning and my husband's like, baby, look, and he showed me on the phone and he's like, there's another guy was killed. And, he showed me the picture, the officer's, knee is on his neck. Look at this. And I said, damn. I'm like, I said, damn, another Black man. I said, this is ridiculous. I'm like, something's got to happen. This is too much. I had no idea that it was going to become a movement, right? I just didn't know it. And I'm so grateful that it has come to a place of a movement, and that there's so many people, of course, Black people, but then non-African Americans who have finally said that enough is enough, that there is inequalities, that there's this lack of justice for Black people, and police accountability and excessive use of force is one form of the racism that we've experienced. But this is far beyond that. This is about social equities and healthcare and human services and education and housing and banking. I mean, the list goes on of where we've been denied. And that's where I'm at. I like to take George Floyd and every other person who has been murdered by the police. I like to take their lives and stand on their shoulders and create a movement on their behalf that changes the way we are treated in America as a people. And to bring those injustices in government is designed this way. The red tape is designed like this for us to have these challenges. And I just want to use his life to make those differences.
Absolutely. No, that's I mean, like, that's a real perspective. I had a similar perspective being a Black man, and just the fact that once as a grown man you start calling out for your mom, you're in trouble. And I think that was just something that really, I mean, it just makes you emotional. And I want to take that and kind of pivot into, let's talk a little bit about policy, and let's talk a little bit about economics. So as a result of that, we've seen a lot of protests, a lot of looting, all over the place, downtown. So as far as Chicago and Chicagoland area, downtown, but what I'm more concerned about is our Black and brown communities. Yeah. And a lot of people, and I know Senator, you're not so much on social media, but a lot of the take has been that, hey, we did that because those folks that own businesses predominantly weren't Black and brown. And so, a lot of people kind of felt like that rationalized what was going on. And, some people feel like Black economics, Black group economics is the solution to rebuilding our communities. I want to get your thoughts on now, since people have, kind of really honed in on the fact that, hey, we should be rebuilding our own communities, or this is a time for us to say, hey, we need to, have our own communities where there's Black businesses. So I kind of just want to get your thoughts on, is that the correct response to some of the looting in our community, saying, hey, it's time for us to start our businesses, it's time for us to own homes, and just want to get your feedback on that.
Yeah. There's no one size fit all right now. There has to be multiple list of solutions in terms of how to drive the movement. Every community is not the same. Every household is not the same. Every Black man in their situation is not the same. So we can't be put in a one size fit all. That's one thing we cannot allow, is for them to keep us in this one size fit all. So when I think of Black economics, I can't find a solution for looting, in my opinion, because the next day I had elderly people in my district and in other Black communities couldn't get their medication. They had no access to food. I had people in senior facilities saying, we can't get food, we need X, Y, and Z after a couple days when all the businesses shut down. So we relied so heavily on the food pantries to feed our people. We had families who couldn't get diapers for their children because they couldn't get into a store. And sometimes we hurt ourselves when we do things like that. But now what I would say is that we're not totally responsible for all the looting. I've also had conversations with mayors in other towns too, and police departments, where a lot of the people who did get arrested for looting that night actually came from Iowa, Michigan, and Wisconsin.
Wow.
They triggered the looting. It was a huge setup. And what they did was, so we had some peaceful protests that Friday, Saturday, they raised that bridge up down on Michigan Avenue, kind of ticked a lot of people off. That next day, when that massive looting started, there were people who came from other states, white folks who drove in U-Hauls in the back of the buildings. They busted out the front, and then they will call police and say there's a shooting somewhere else far away so they could send them off, and while they looted and stole and took things. Now, the looting that our people did was more tearing up the structure. They were not taking the merchandise. So there was a little difference in how the looting happened. And then in addition to that, you saw people who've been down, who don't have, who live in poverty. They seized the moment. Windows were bust out, stores was open. They took what they could so that at some point they could make a financial gain from it. So there was different levels of looting. There were different types of looters, and we can't just blame our people in our community for that looting, but those in our community who were looting, I want to hold you accountable for ruining your own community and keeping resources away from your own people who need it. Now, the thing is, when we look at Madison and Pulaski, and we look at areas that were looted back when Martin Luther King was murdered, they look the same way that they looked 52 years ago. So there hadn't been any additional investment back into the community. Right now, we're having conversations with those stores and saying, hey, we don't want you to go stay in our community because we still need those resources, until we get to a place where Black businesses can be reborn to that level. Now, every other community have their own people in their own stores, especially Brown community. I applaud them for that. You can go in Little Village, and you can go in communities even right here in Melrose Park at 19th Street, and all Latino, they own their own stores. Now, for us, and you see who own our stores: Asians, Koreans, Hispanic, everybody but us. Everybody but us. But that goes to the issue of Black entrepreneurship and Black economics, and being able to get a loan for a development, right? Being able to take your skill, your gift, your talent, put it on paper, and be able to translate that into the resources you need to build that institution that you're trying to build. That's where we lack. And I can personally speak to that. I've been trying to jumpstart me a business for like the last 4 years, because I knew I was approaching that 20-year mark. And in my mind, it's time for somebody else. It's time for me to pass the torch. It's okay. I've been doing this since I was 27. I'm 52. I survived it. But in this moment, I'm needed because I know the policy inside out, and I know how to get it done, and I know how to fight the battles. But I think that I share with the governor about economic development in our community and how Black folks can go to the bank and get a loan. And I just flat out asked him, what's the formula? What keeps Black people from being able to get loans? Is it our credit score? Is it our assets on hand? No, is it our assets, period, in terms of them adding up our wealth? Is it our cash on hand? What is it? Is it a combination of all three that gives us trigger to say, I can give you a loan? Because why is it so difficult for Blacks to get loans? And then when you do have a small business, why are they so challenged and growing? Why do they remain small for so long and they can't expand and grow and have chains in different Black communities? Why are we so limited? And so we can't just cut everybody off until we have those doors open. So another example of institutional racism that's designed to keep Black folks from having wealth. And so until we can cut that off and open a door, then why will we get rid of all these other businesses and have no access and resources into our community? So there has to be a phase, is what I'm trying to get at. There has to be a phase out and a phase in. It can't just be a cutoff at once and then we have not until we're able to do so, right? So we've got to figure out a way together how to get there. So the governor, not speaking ahead of myself, but he scheduled a meeting for him and myself with the guy that owned LaSalle Banks, he's retired now, older gentleman. He's got some connections in the community lending, small bankers, community banks, and the mid-sized banks, for us to come up with a model so that we can say, hey, here's what you need, Tyreese. Here's what you need, Miguel. Get your credit score to this point. Have your assets at this. Have your cash on hand here. Here's how you create your blueprint to your financial stability to gain this money. And then once you get it for that business, how do you manage the business to make sure that you're able to grow? So all of those things are important. And those are the things, some of the things that you'll be hearing from me, like in the months to come, on how do we start and build our own Black wealth.
That's phenomenal.
That was a great answer.
We have you as a leader in leading that. I have a question. Obviously, in listening to you, I wanted to switch to something that's kind of a personal goal, as well as something that I think our community needs. Vacation. I have the desire and the burning desire to go to Africa, visit places in Africa, really learn origin. And to me, I just don't think our Black community really have those avenues or those roads for us to actually go visit and understand some of the cultural differences that come from Africa in order to bring that back into our community to truly understand our roots. What is your thoughts of that and possible roads that we actually can get to actually accomplish that?
Oh my God. So Africa is on my bucket list. It's yes, it's just a place that I've always wanted to go to. When Nelson Mandela was alive, I just wanted to go meet him, right? And just sit with him and dine with him. I did have the pleasure of meeting Winnie Mandela and having a conversation with her. And it was so warm and it was so moving. And I'm still putting my nickels together, honey. You know, I make state money. So I'm still trying to put my little coins together and build up, because if I'm able to go to Africa, I wouldn't want to be there and can't really feel the people and be engaged and want to do the tourist stuff, but I want to feel the land and I want to connect. And that's going to take a period of time. So that's like, you need at least 2 weeks to be in Africa, right? And so that you can travel a little bit within Africa. And so I think if we all could do that, that would be amazing. But until we can actually put our feet on their soil, doesn't mean we can't learn who we are. And that's, again, back to Black history and us being taught on who we are. So until us being taught in our school books, we have a responsibility ourselves to gain that knowledge. And as the adults that we are, we have a responsibility to teach our kids and the next generation behind us so that they're well informed and they can teach behind them. So it's almost like self-teaching ourselves, self-teaching us who we are, and not depending on government to do it, or not depending on us to come up with enough resources to take us to Africa to do so, but being able to bring Africa to us and bring Africa into our homes until we're able to make that trip. It's definitely on my bucket list, though.
That's awesome. We are here with Senate Majority Leader Kimberly Lightford, and she has given us all the tea, all the info as it relates to what's going on and what's on her mind. I want to ask one more policy question. I know we want to be respectful of your time. I want to ask one more policy question before we end with you talking about what you got going on this weekend. I don't know if you watched The Breakfast Club, but Charlemagne the God is famous for always asking our national like presidential candidates about a Black agenda. As it relates to, do you have policies and do you have ideas that are specific to the Black and Brown community? And so, Senator, I want to ask, at the state legislature, you know, I know we went on, for those that don't know, the Joint Black Caucus of elected officials did a 4-stop tour that ended in Maywood a couple weekends ago with Governor Pritzker there, talking about our demands as it relates to the Black and Brown people, and so our people. And so I wanted to take a moment to ask you, is there a Black agenda in the Illinois state legislature that's being prepared? What does it consist of, and where are we at with it?
So absolutely, there is a Black agenda, and we've had a Black agenda for years now. I'm the former chairman of the Illinois Legislative Black Caucus, and every year we have a retreat and we re-refine our Black agenda as it relates to legislative initiatives and things that we're addressing during that General Assembly. But this far exceeds that. This is not small in nature. This is big. And I've been engaged with our caucus on think big. We may not ever again in our lifetime experience an opportunity to really impact institutional racism at this level that we can do it. So this isn't a quick, let's run down to Springfield, let's take this small idea, let's take these few little demands. I can't go with that. My heart and my spirit and my soul says fight like hell right now. Get as much as you can. And there are so many challenges that is going to cause experts to tell us in housing, how can we close this foreclosure crisis in our community? There's boarded up houses on all our blocks, and we know that. And if it's not on your block, lucky you that you have a block that there's no houses boarded up, but they're definitely in your communities. They're all around you, and they're pulling your property values down. So how do we address foreclosure? Foreclosure ties into homelessness. Those who are homeless, why are they homeless? What are we doing there? Why can't they get a home loan to buy a home? You find so many renters. And I have so many friends who say, hey, my credit not good. I can't get a home loan, or I can get one, but it's not enough. So the house that I have to buy would need a lot of work, and this kind of thing. So I think when we talk about an agenda, there's so many linkages to greater problems. They kind of like just keep doing like this, but it makes sense. So when we look at foreclosure, we have to look at why can't we get home loans? Same conversation I just said, why can't we get business loans? Why can't we help the homeless, make sure there's affordable housing? Why can't we make sure then that parlays into education? Why are Black men unemployed? Why does Chicago have the highest percentage of unemployed African American men in the country? Why? Is it their education level? Is the public school system not teaching them after they leave high school? Are they not college ready? The trades been failed us. They haven't given us apprenticeships and jobs in many years, and that's what we pretty much relied on and depended on. And when the manufacturing left Black people and left our communities, we were left jobless. So even when Amazon came and Uber came and all these companies and Boeing came to Chicago, did that create jobs for us? Did that create middle income positions for us? Or did that continue to put us in these part-time positions that have no health insurance, no benefits, nothing for you to look forward to in your retirement, no pension opportunities or any of that? So it's so many challenges and problems that we've just been locked out of that I just get fired up now. Y'all get me fired up. You hit me, Miguel and Tyreese. On my way out the door, I'm about to jump out my chair. You get me fired up because I'm pissed. I'm angry as hell because I've been 20-some years fighting this big battle right here. And every year I leave Springfield mad as hell. I've argued, I've cussed, I've cried. I've had colleagues who are dead and gone, honestly, dead and gone, who never helped support the Black agenda. And now that we're at a point to get it done, I want it all. I want every single thing that my community has been denied for generations. I want it all. So don't expect me to rush to Springfield with something small in nature. It's got to be sustainable. It's got to make sense. It's got to be something that we can get other people who aren't Black or brown to vote on. So when I say that, I have to explain the way we're set up. It takes 30 votes to get a bill passed. 30. There's 9 Black senators, just 9. And then we have 5 Latinos, which they haven't voted for all of everything that we do, but let's say they do, as we should all be working together. That gives us 14. we still need 16 non-African Americans to help us get anything done out of the Senate. And because we have their attention, and because the whole world is watching, this is the moment. That pandemic, COVID-19, has really hurt us in a lot of ways, but it also helped us. It had everybody at one time sitting idle, and they had to understand, all of us, all across this country and actually across the world, all recognize the inequities that Black people have in healthcare, that Black people have in all types of social services, from mental health to seniors receiving Meals on Wheels, to daycares not being fully funded for people to work while their kids is in a safe space. I mean, I could go on and on with all the challenges and the battles that we fought for. And now this stimulus package was one of those, give you a turkey at Thanksgiving and everybody love you. That's what the stimulus package was. That $1,000 been spent and gone, and people are still in poverty, and people are still being held down and held back, and they're not allowed fair opportunities and where it matters to really change your life. I'm talking about people having sustaining lifestyle changes. That's what I want to see happen. And that cannot happen with some quick nothing. So researchers are right now engaging with us. Experts are in conversations with us around all of these subjects so that we can have a real comprehensive package that we can look back over the next year and see what we've accomplished. So you're going to have some immediate fixes. You're going to have some short-term resolutions, then you're going to have some long-term resolutions that's get into some solid sustainability, where we look back 10 years from now and say, that's what that movement was about. That movement changed the next generations, and we can continue to build on that. I don't want an easy, quick fix. Don't just drop no little pot of money, because it's a lot of money, and that money keeps rotating, and we're getting a smidgen of it. We want more than that. We want sustainable income. We don't want just $5. We want a whole lot of $5, and we want them to constantly keep coming to our community as they go to all other communities. So that's what I'm talking about. And while I'm here, I want to plead to the Black community to stop it. Stop fighting each other. Stop killing each other. Stop devaluing each other's lives. It makes no sense. And while we are doing it, they're watching us. They know we don't value each other. They know that we can't get past the next day without some constant BS happening. That's why I'm not engaged on Facebook, technology, or anything else. It sucks me. It just sucks the life out of me with the BS, the arguments, the negativity over nothing. And in my mind, we're all fighting over crumbs. Just none of us have, as we should. And so we're all pissed off about it. So we're angry as a people because we've been denied, but we take that aggression out on each other. And that's what we have to stop doing. And that's what I want to appeal to all the Black community. We have to love on each other a whole lot better than we do.
Speaking of love, let's talk about Juneteenth and the march that you have organized and is planning for tomorrow. Could you please speak about?
Look, I'm glad, because I forgot to talk about that. Miguel had me so hyped up over here on the break agenda and brought me to tears. I forgot the Juneteenth. Okay, so guys, Juneteenth, because we lacked in it and don't know as much about it and hasn't supported and embraced the holiday as we should. I was talking to a couple mayors, and we thought this will be a perfect opportunity to bring all of our communities together. It's a quick turnaround, so I'm hoping you can join us on tomorrow. We're going to start in the village of Broadview, right at the Village Hall on 25th and Roosevelt. Mayor Katrina Thompson is hosting us there. We're going to take that march, and we're going to protest for police accountability. We're celebrating Juneteenth. We're not going to lose sight of the celebration, but we're also going to acknowledge the conditions that we're in as a people. And that leads to George Floyd's murder, and all the others leads to police accountability and all the other injustices that we face. We want to take our message down 25th Avenue and connect across the Eisenhower to the village of Bellwood, where Mayor Andre Harvey, the first African-American mayor of Bellwood, will be there to receive that torch from Mayor Katrina Thompson, who's, by the way, the first Black woman in Broadview. We're going to carry that down Madison Street to the Rock of Ages on 13th and Madison, where Mayor Edwina Perkins will be there, another first Black woman to be the mayor of the community, who will be there to receive the torch from Mayor Andre Harvey from Bellwood. She's going to walk that torch through Maywood, and we're going to connect with Rory Hoskin in Forest Park, who's also the first African-American mayor of Forest Park. So we have a lot of firsts that we ought to embrace and make sure that we get behind and support in our communities in Proviso Township. But then we also have neighboring communities like River Forest. I just got a call this morning from Mayor Ducey saying, what can River Forest do to help? So there are other surrounding communities around us who are also wanting to embrace us and be a part of this movement for justice and democracy. And so we're excited. We're geared up for tomorrow. Please join us. We're starting at the village of Bellwood at 3:30, and we're going to take this march to the village of Forest Park. The end of the march will be an organization that was just formed called Forest Park Against Racism. They're doing a memorial for all of the lives that have been lost. They're going to be on the bridge on Circle Avenue that goes over the Eisenhower. They're placing the names of all of the individuals across the bridge, and their program will kick off at 6 p.m. So we'll be in the nick of time to join them and have a full Juneteenth celebration. So the celebration for those were about celebrating life, celebrating freedom. And that's what Juneteenth means to me, freedom. And justice, fairness in opportunities. And that's what we are unifying our efforts between Broadview, Bellwood, Maywood, and Forest Park, and all the communities within and surrounding us. So please come out and join us for a Juneteenth celebration.
Well, I will absolutely be there. I'm going to speak to Tyreese and say that he will absolutely be there too. Just want to take him, just to wrap it up. Again, this has been a great conversation. I know our senator is extremely busy. So for the fact that she gave us, a powerful little over 36 minutes is amazing. So I wanted to thank you again. Some people question the passion or the authenticity of our local leaders and our state leaders, and anyone that watches this, hopefully will never doubt that again, that we have people really, truly fighting for policy, because people want to say, well, all we do is march. No, we have people fighting for policy to improve, our position in this country and in this world. So I just want to thank you again for taking time out. Again, just want to remind folks that we will be meeting in the village of Broadview at 3:30 tomorrow for our march against police brutality, but then also to celebrate Juneteenth. So I just want to, again, thank you again so much. This has been an honor.
Thank you.
And
thank you for giving me all damned up, Miguel. You had me with the ugly cry, but okay. And I'm not ashamed to weep for my people, because I feel it in my soul. And I'm going to keep on being this angry Black woman until we have what we need, and rightfully so. We deserve it. It's owed to us, and we want it.
Thank you, Senator. I just wanted to piggyback on Miguel's speech and actually say thank you for actually coming and giving us this message. Obviously, one of the toughest things that we, being a younger generation and actually having a generation behind us, is to know how, as a community, to continue to pass the torch and keep relevant, important messages flowing, and as well as grow as a community. I would like you just briefly, if you could, to speak to that as far as what can we do and how can we continue to engage and actually engage the next generation to continue our message and our points in order to grow the movement Obviously, we're at a very, very important point today, but we want to continue the momentum and grow it in our community. Could you close with that, please, and give us enlightenment to how we can accomplish that?
Yes, I would thank you. Thank you for having me on the show. Thank you for getting me riled up this morning. And because I was a little down, and that was just a pick me up for me. And I would love it if our generations could connect more, right? And I would love it if people could pass the torch and feel open about sharing and embracing each other's ideas and concepts. And this whole division thing, it has gone on for far too long. And I don't play on no side. I'm just on the side for what's right to get things moving. And we have to, as a community, make sure that we don't continue to inherit bad behaviors and things that kept us divided. At some point, we have to say, hey, we moving in a different direction, and we moving in a different way that we can all embrace and kind of come together. And so for me, I always wonder, why am I involved in this? I'm too young for this. And I was always the youngest in every room, the blackest in every room, and a woman. I had like 3 strikes against me coming through the door, and I could never figure this out. And that's, again, why it's so passionate for me, because I couldn't understand my purpose in all of this. And now it's just come to the forefront for me in so many ways that I'm prepared for this moment, because I've been through it all for the last 23 years, 24 years of my life. And I didn't have a place, and I was very different. And I was the poverty person in the room. I was the one that had lived a lifestyle different from all the others. And then even the black on black was disgusting to me. The whole divide between the South Side and the West Side is ridiculous, because neither of us have. And while we pit against one another and fight against one another, that's what we get, nothing. And it's the same thing in the village of Maywood and all these other surrounding Black communities. You're fighting over nothing, and you're fighting each other for no reason, and we're not getting ahead as a result. So we're limiting our own resources. So if I could plead to your generation to just stop it, have the conversations with the gang leaders, have the conversations with those who are out here killing and shooting and can't shoot because their focus is always off. They always hitting innocent people. If you got an issue with that person, y'all take that somewhere else. Stop going up and down our community blocks and around our parks and schools and killing our children, So I think gangs used to deal with things a little differently. Go back, even if you got a gang bang, do what you got to do. That's not my place to tell you, but my place is to tell you, stop harming people that ain't got nothing to do with what you mad over, right? So even in that, we have to embrace everyone and say, what's your opinion? What's your voice? Put it out here on the table, and let's see what type of an agenda we can come to together as a community and move forward. But as long as we stay divided, we have not. We have not.
Thank you. Thank you, Senator. We really appreciate the conversation. We know that you're busy. Thank you for actually sharing and speaking with us.
Thank you.
We look forward to seeing you tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
And we actually hope everyone can actually come out and join us tomorrow as we celebrate Juneteenth. And by the way, let's go, because it's somebody's birthday. Let's go. Thank you.
Thank you.
Right, thank you. You too. Thank you.